Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump held his first rally in quite a while on Saturday in North Carolina. Joining us now to decipher what this all could mean as we get closer to our next round of elections, 2022 and then 2024, is the founder and managing director of the White House Writers Group and a former Reagan speechwriter, Clark Judge, and presidential historian Doug Weed back with us this morning. Gentlemen, nice to have you both on. Good to see you. Doug, since 1789, the beginning of this country, really, since George Washington was president, only 6 vice presidents have been independently elected president. I've got the names of those vice presidents highlighted there. Joe Biden was vice president under President Obama, and he's the most recent example of that. Does that bode well for the former vice president, and I'll include current vice president Kamala Harris?
Well, 15, as you know, 15 vice presidents became president eventually.
Right.
And Rob, I think what the public misunderstands, this is quite a political game. If you had a 1 in 5,000 shot to win the lottery, would you buy that ticket? So even though Mike Pence, it looks very difficult, it looks like this is Trump's to win, anything can happen. And when you're that close to the presidency, you have to play your cards and see what happens. Anything could happen. So Pence is in this, and there's a possibility.
I think it's clear that Mike Pence is in this, at least right now. Of course, a lot can change, Clark, as we know. Clark, take me through the process, sort of, when a politician turns back into a candidate. You're putting together a speech for Reagan. Let's say it's 1983, and you're getting ready for the 84 campaign. What shifts as you're putting together a speech?
It doesn't change that much. He's got basic messages. This was a serious speech in terms of policy, in terms of critique of the current administration, in terms of what has to be done going forward. It was powerfully delivered. You'd expect that more or less all the way through. The difference is that if you're in power and you're trying to make a coalition with the other side, you downplay the partisan parts of it. The the Biden administration has not downplayed its partisanship since the day they took office. His State of the Union address and other every time he gets up, there's a partisan tinge to it and a real sharp hit at the Republicans. Don't be surprised then if the Republicans come back in the same way. They're the opposition party. They have to. Mr. Pence took the initiative, and he delivered it well. And the way he talked about the current President Biden, and what he's doing, good hit on some real failures in the current administration.
Yeah, and we've seen Mike Pompeo out there speaking as well, making speeches and that sort of thing. All the acts of somebody who's thinking about running more than just crafting policy. Doug, President Biden also made a speech for college graduates. Much different tone, but here's our current president in the way that his speeches are sounding right now. Take a listen.
As we put this pandemic behind us, rebuild our economy, root out systemic racism, and tackle climate change, we're addressing the great crises of our time with a greater sense of purpose than ever before. And because of you, your generation, I've never been more optimistic about the future than I am today.
Boy, oh boy, it makes a big difference when you're speaking in front of an audience, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And the Democrats are still struggling. They're still smarting with what Donald Trump has accomplished. They're paranoid about it, and especially with African Americans. And they're just irritated when he says, I've done more for African Americans than any president since Abraham Lincoln. He got the prison reform passed. He did so many things that haunt the Democrat Party today. So by promoting this idea that the country is totally divided by racism, as harmful as that is to a little child, a little African American daughter or son, to be taught that they're hated just because of their race, that's a shame. We should be past that.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, that's where the discussion is today.
Clark, quick question, and I'm always curious about this when I speak with a presidential speechwriter. Do you know when those lines are going to become lines that live forever in history?
You write them so they will.
And you hope?
you're writing for applause lines to pace your speech. You're writing
Right.
for sound bites to capture the way it's presented in the media, the clips that are taken on the television, and things such as catch terms, such as systemic racism, which is way off the mark of, I think, but is the theme of the Democrats right now, in part because they are anxious about the Black vote, the
Right.
African American and minority vote, and they're trying to stoke up fears. But those are phrases. Giving something a name is a way of getting it locked in with the media and with public discussion, imagination.
It's interesting. I asked Ted Sorensen the exact same question, and he gave a very similar answer. He says, you hope that those are the lines that live, but sometimes lines that you you didn't plan on that line being big, they go and they become famous. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to do, but you are casting a lot of lines into the water and
Yeah.
seeing what the fish nibble at.
Clark
The
Judge,
fish
Doug
being
Weed,
media.
so nice having you both on. We appreciate it. Good to see you. Come back and see us soon.
Thanks, Rob.
For some reason, this interview you just saw was heavily censored. The only way we know to get around that is if you subscribe to this channel, YouTube channel, and hit the bell. And or if you send this link to a friend in an email, that can get through. Or subscribe to Rumble. They don't seem to censor these. But this one is especially experiencing some rough censorship. Thank you. We're gonna live through this. Bye-bye.